Hi everyone, my name is Lulu, and today I am bringing you guys an update on a case that I have covered on my channel, and it is the Brianna Genaos Rosario case. If you haven't watched the first video, I am going to give you a quick recap of what this case is about. I know I said I was going to be doing updates as they came out, but honestly, I'm really glad that I made the decision to wait and just keep watching what was going to go on because there have been a lot of things happening on this case that honestly are very confusing. I mentioned it in my first video, but there is a lot of information coming out, some of it false, some of it half true. It's been very hard to distinguish the facts from, from fiction, quite honestly. But I am going to try my best to give you guys the most chronological timing and to give you guys the most actual and truthful information that I can give you within my power. For those of you that have not heard about this case or haven't seen the first video, I do want to give you a quick recap. That way you can understand everything that's going on. So, Brianna Genaos Rosario is a 3-year-old little girl who went missing on New Year's Eve from her family home in the Dominican Republic. Brianna normally resides in Barrero Navarrete with her grandmother, who's the one that's raising her, since her mother lives in the United States. But they went to visit her great grandmother's house in Barrero Inbert in Puerto Plata for Christmas and for the New Year. So for the holidays, they were visiting, the more extended side of the family. Brianna went missing around 5:30 in the afternoon, but that's to be questioned because if you watched the last video, everybody seems to have like different timings and then they all sort of tend to go on the same story after a while. But we've heard a few hours. We've heard around 3:30, we've heard around 5:30, some other times. So basically, no one that was there seems to have the same story. They all seem to have different details of what happened, which is to be understandable, of course, because obviously everybody was going to be doing different things and in different places. But there were 7 people in that house when she disappeared. The story that we know right now the most is that her uncle dropped her off in the house, and her grandmother was taking a shower. She was supposed to be done soon, but when she got out, she couldn't find Brianna. And that's when, she started asking around. No one else had seen her. Other people thought that maybe someone else was with her. And that's when they started searching. One last important thing that you guys really need to keep in mind, and I'm doing for this recap, is that Barrero and Imbert is a very rural area. This is the countryside. This is El Campo. There's maybe 5 or 6 houses in the entire vicinity, and that's me being very generous. If there are any more houses, they're very spread apart. I mean, people are farmers here. They farm for cocoa, so naturally, most people have their houses near their cocoa fields. This is an area where there's a lot of vegetation. There's no paved roads. Even to get into the town, it's all a dirt road. The house that Brianna went missing from, there is only one road to go in and out. Otherwise, you're gonna have to be trekking through bushes. I don't even think like vehicles can get through there. So it's very, very hard for someone to just go missing and no one notice or at least find them quickly because there's only so many places that you can go before you stumble, before, you get lost and maybe you stop, especially for a 3-year-old child who can't even walk that well. Like they can only go so far on their own before they trip or fall down, especially in a terrain like that. So, when I first started talking about this case, there were some little rumors, some talks that it was perhaps one of her uncles. People were saying that he had confessed to doing something horrible to her. But since we actually have gotten what's considered an official confession from both of her uncles, and by uncles, I mean her grandmother's brothers, so they technically would be her great uncles or second cousins, and they have since confessed to sexually abusing and murdering this little girl and burying her somewhere in the vicinity. And with this confession has come a lot of controversy in a sense because it's touched upon a lot of topics and people are angry. Now, I don't have access to a report or anything with this confession. It's not like the US where I can maybe file for something to get access to that report like publicly. So, what I'm about to tell you from the confession is actually from an interview that her father and his brother did in Esto No Es Radio a few days ago, almost a week now. And so I'm going based off what he was told. And keep in mind, of course, that everything he was told by authorities who called him in after they gave this confession, and they gave him more detail, a lot of details that, of course, he didn't want to share. And don't blame him. I don't see why anyone needs to know the full details either, because it's quite gruesome. The way that this confession went, so, like I mentioned, it's the two great uncles, Rafael and Pepito, whose real name is Reyes. Rafael takes Brianna to this shack, to this little house that's like near there, but far away enough. Pepito wasn't there initially, but he somehow knew, it seems, to go to this shack, or he knew where to find his brother. And when he finds him, he sees what he is doing to the little girl. And he tells him, "Stop, don't do this. That's family." Not that, hey, this is a 3-year-old child. That's completely morally despicable, but stop. This is family. Clearly, Rafael doesn't stop. And now at this point, we don't know if Pepito joined in on these horrible acts too. But what we do know is that after Rafael was done, he asphyxiated the little girl, and they both buried her together and allegedly made a pact to not tell anyone what happened. The thing that got people mad is for the following reasons. One, is that this confession was allegedly done under the means of torture. And because of that, it might not be viable in court or viable to the point where they could ever get jail time. And two, and the worst in a sense, is that they say that they don't remember where they buried this little girl. Now, if this confession is true, and you're going to see why some people are now questioning the validity of this confession, is because you've lived there. These are men that have lived there their entire freaking lives. There is no way you don't remember where you buried someone. There's no way you don't remember where you put something, especially like in a case like this. People that live there their entire lives, there's just no way that they don't remember where they buried her if they did do this. These men are in their 40s, maybe a bit older. They've been there their entire lives. They know this place. I'm telling you, they know it like the back of their hands, because my family's from El Campo too, and they know how to go all the hills. I don't even know how they do it, because personally I would never be able to remember. I get lost. They know all the nooks and crannies. Shit, some of them even know secret locations that other people don't even know about. So these men definitely know if they did this where they buried her. So them not remembering is totally BS. But the thing is, too, because people are saying that it could possibly have been gotten under torture and it's not valid, there's another aspect to that torture thing, and it's that if there is no body, there is no crime. So in the Dominican Republic, there has been a history of confessions being gotten via the means of torture. So in the 90s, there was a law that was passed that a confession isn't enough to jail someone, or, even send them to trial, because if there's no evidence to back it up, it's just a confession, due to the history of so many falsely gotten confessions under these means. Because of course, if you're being hit and if you're being waterlogged, even if you didn't do it naturally, I feel like the human body, like, there's only so much pain that you can accept, so you're going to be willing to say whatever is necessary for them to let you go. But people are wondering, and I say this with no offense, because I feel like class doesn't determine intelligence, neither does your job, because there's people out there that have never been to college and are smarter than people that've gotten like their PhDs, no kidding. But these men, their lexicon, their way of speaking, it doesn't indicate an intelligence beyond, how do I say this? Beyond like maybe middle school or elementary school. Like these aren't people that would be equipped with intense knowledge of the law enough to know that, hey, if they can't find the body, they can't charge us. So someone's wondering if, hey, is someone advising them and told them to not say where the location of the body is so that they don't go to jail? There's a lot of questions like that because people are just wondering what the hell is going on, right? Because if the police interrogate them and they don't know about this whole no body, no no case, then maybe they would have given out where the location is because they think, well, we're going to jail anyways, might as well say where it is. But of course, if you have this information, that you're not going to say where the body is, you're going to send people on a goose chase, if that's the right word, because you're not going to want the body to be found. Now, I'm going to go back in time just a little bit, right? Because Brianna's father and Brianna's uncle on her father's side, they were detained for 2 days by the police to be questioned, to be interrogated. And we learned from this interview that her father and her uncle did that the reason mainly too that they got interrogated and questioned for 2 days is because when Brianna went missing, a lot of people were searching for her, and these searches were organized by the authorities. You weren't allowed to search on your own. If you were going to search, it was in groups, which is completely understandable because we don't know if there is a suspect. You're not going to send a possible suspect chasing on their own because if they find evidence, of course they're going to like dispose of it or not tell anyone. So they were searching in groups, but he mentioned that the groups did split up. Even within groups, they would split up so they could cover more ground, which in some ways understandable, in other ways questionable because of that whole evidence thing. So Brianna's uncle on her father's side, he's the one that finds the crocs that belong to Brianna. He found one croc and then he found the second one. The thing that hurts Brianna's father and her uncle is that, they didn't suspect Brianna's great uncles initially because they were even there during the search. And he mentioned when he found the Crocs, he actually was with one of them and he told them, like, hey, like, go call someone, go find someone, tell them that I found these Crocs, are these shoes, are they the little girls? So the uncle goes away and finds, the authorities. And from there is when her father and her uncle, they get taken to get interrogated for those 2 days. Now, they're saying based off their experience, they were treated very well during interrogation. Of course, it was still an interrogation, but they weren't beat and they weren't abused in any ways. But as Brianna's own uncle says, of course, that's their lived experience. That's not to say that, hey, maybe the uncles weren't tortured. But Brianna's father strongly believed at this point, after, this confession, that it was them because apparently the police even showed him bloody footprints in that shack that seemed to belong to Brianna. There was like a little better cot and it had blood on it, a lot of blood, which was indicative of sexual assault. And another thing, and the reason why these uncles were brought in to be interrogated, the trigger was that Rafael, the guy that did the despicable acts allegedly, they were all, checked by like a medical professional or a forensic doctor. I'm not really sure what the role is called, but when he checked Rafael's genitals, he had a lesion and he asked him, "Hey, what is this from?" And Rafael was like, "Oh, I did it to myself." But I guess the doctor knew that there's no way that a man can just do that to himself. And it seems that in cases involving men raping minors, little girls, I'm sorry, it's just so hard to talk about. There's certain lesions that are left on men's private parts from the act that wouldn't necessarily be there if it was an older person or an adult or if it was consensual. And this is what triggered those investigations, and that's why they got brought in, and therefore that's where those confessions were gotten. So what happens after this interview, you know, people are outraged. People are saying, fuck if it's torture. We don't care because if it's true, we want them to say where she is. We don't care if you have to torture them more. So they give out exactly where she is, cut off their balls, pull out their teeth. People are very understandably outraged. And after that interview, too, of course, everyone's like, it has to be them. Like, there's evidence. Like, there's no way that it's not them. And so, what happens while all this outrage is going on is that, of course, authorities continue searching, canines keep being brought in. Um, and another thing, too, that was found more recently, there was like some sort of cloth or cover like found in the middle of the woods that maybe was part of the case, maybe not. And this entire time they're searching, they're looking, they can't find her. They don't find anything. Then a few days ago, or a week ago almost, the FBI joins in. This makes headlines. Everyone's like, "Wait, what? Why is the FBI joining in?" Because the FBI is the United States, that's the United States Investigation Group, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I mean, the FBI has hundreds, if not thousands of cases here that they haven't even solved. So what is special enough about this case to pull them over there to investigate Brianna's case? Now, from what I'm seeing, and I don't know if this is completely true because, like I keep mentioning, there's a lot of information going about, is that the FBI was already in the Dominican Republic, like, one of their groups, um, hoping to train like our canines over there in cases like this. So they decided, like, hey, we might as well join and, assist. And that's just from what I've heard. And like I mentioned to you guys, there's another kid who went missing under very similar circumstances in March of 2025 called Rodalni. And his parents even ended up going to the site that Brianna went missing, where all the reporters were. Because after they found that the FBI was there begging, like, hey, please look at our case too, because our child also deserves to have that same attention and also to be looked after, right? Because there is, in some senses, like something about, Brianna's mom lives in the United States, so does her grandfather. Is that why maybe she's getting the special attention? But then there's other more nefarious reasons to this. People are saying that there is some sort of child trafficking or organ trafficking going on in the Dominican Republic. And that's why some netizens believe that the FBI joined, because they don't believe that she's necessarily missing. They think that she was perhaps stolen or sold off for either her organs or God knows what other horrible intentions. And so far, a lot of people are starting to think that, hey, this may be true because the FBI joined in the search and they were searching for days too, and they found nothing. But most recently, you want to know where they put Brianna? They put her as part of the missing kids case in Interpol. So basically, it's like warning airports and stuff like that, like, hey, watch out if this little girl comes true because she could have been kidnapped. She could be actively being trafficked. So that completely changes everything, right? Because now you're like, okay, so were the uncle's confessions false? Were they really gotten under torture and the police was just trying to find a way to end this case? Were they still guilty, but just in a different manner, which was, did they sell her to someone and, they couldn't say who it is because of fear? Or was it someone else in the family that sold her off? Did she really get kidnapped and somehow no one out of these seven people was able to see or hear anything? What is going on with that case, right? Now, I'm of the opinion, and I think that they should be doing this going forward with any missing child case, is that they should be putting them on this list as soon as we hear that a kid is going missing. Because in Brianna's case, okay, I'm glad that they put her there and that there is a possible chance that this little girl is alive. But also, at this point, it's been more than 2 weeks. Like, If they wanted to take her to an airport, if they wanted to transport her to another country or another place, they probably did it already. I feel like it's a little too late in some senses to be putting this alert out. And of course, better late than never. But I just feel like whoever wanted to do what they wanted to do probably already did it. And I don't know, it's just child trafficking and organ trafficking is something pretty crazy. And the thing is too, like, there's been more and more cases of children going missing in the Dominican Republic, and that's something that didn't really happen back then. Like, maybe you heard about one or two, like, in a year, but now it just seems to be a thing where it feels like kids are going missing almost every day or every other week. And there have been things that have been happening that are really putting people on alert. And before I mention those, I do want to say this is where we do leave off with Brianna's case for now because they haven't been able to find her and we haven't gotten more official news of what they really think happened. So for now, maybe it's true that the uncles did what they did, or maybe it's true that she got kidnapped or got sold off, and God knows where this little girl is. But her mom, Jessica, her name's Jessica, does have a feeling that Brianna's alive. She says she's holding on to hope and that she really believes in her heart of heart that her little girl is alive. She doesn't feel like she's passed away. And honestly, I hope to God that is the truth and that this little girl is found. Now, I'm not going to go too in debt into this, but there has been a lot of weird things going on lately in the Dominican Republic in terms of possible organ trafficking and child rings, right? Only like 3 or 4 days ago, there was something huge on the news that I feel like should be even huger is that there was a truck going around a school in the DR. I believe it was in the capital, if I'm correct. And these two little girls, one was older, one was younger, they started running because they saw that the man in the truck had like a cloth. The older girl saw this. The little girl, I imagine, of course, wasn't gonna have the knowledge of this, but she saw that he was putting something on the cloth, like some sort of liquid. And this was like 5:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock. So there's not a lot of people around at this time. There's not a lot of businesses that are open. And once she saw this, she started running. And she stated that this truck was following her. And they finally found like a store that was open and a man. And they ended up telling him, like, hey, like, we think we're about to get kidnapped. And there's been a lot of other incidents about this that I'm gonna go into in a separate video, but there is just something really weird going on that this hasn't happened over there before. And then most recently too, this is pertaining to the organ trafficking side of things. There is a sister whose brother had been killed, and I say killed because okay, he was shot, right, in the leg and almost near his torso. Um, like it was his arm and like his leg somewhere near his torso, maybe his pelvis. And they brought him in. He was conscious, he was talking. And his sister, mind you, she's a nurse in Orlando, Florida. And of course, the medical doctors over there, I'm sure they don't know that. But they say that he dies, right? They give them the body and they find out that all of his organs are missing. They conducted an autopsy on him, which they say because he died in a violent manner, then the government automatically has to perform an autopsy on people that die like that. But that doesn't explain why his organs are missing from inside him. You don't take out organs during an autopsy and not put them back. This dude isn't like an organ donor. They didn't ask his family if they wanted to donate the organs or anything. They just did it. And his sister, who's a nurse, in Orlando, she's like, that's not how you do it. There's a lot of medical negligence going on. So she flew over from Orlando to figure out and do her own investigation because there is something going on. where are his organs, why they didn't ask for consent. And apparently, there's another case, which once again, I'm gonna have to go into a full separate video of this girl whose parents, she was having like a really bad fever. They took her to a hospital, and the hospital said she died. And then they returned her, and she's missing her organs as well. But what they don't know either about this family is that her dad is actually a doctor. So he knew that something completely wrong was going over there. This is actually a case that's still ongoing. It's supposed to go to court, but people are asking, where are these organs going? Who are they going to? Why are they taking it out? Why aren't they going with consent? And people are scared that you're going to go into the hospital for maybe something that's non life threatening or minor, and then you're going to leave there dead and without your organs. And organ trafficking is huge everywhere in the world. It's not just in the Dominican Republic, but we hadn't really heard about these cases before on our island. These are things that, happen to everyone else, but they don't happen to us, is, is what people think until now that all of these cases are coming together. It might be really possible that there is some sort of organ trafficking ring and some child trafficking ring. Maybe they're connected, maybe they're not, but something is going on. These organs are going to someone, I'm assuming rich people, because rich people, money will do anything. And there's people out there that are evil and they don't care how it's gotten as long as they can save their family members. Organs are worth a lot, everyone. Like seriously, like when people say, "Oh, like I'll like sell my kidney." It's because organs are worth a lot. Everybody wants to live, but some people can't live without other people's body parts. And especially if you're rich and you don't want to wait and you don't want to risk not ever getting those parts, a lot of people are willing to, do some shady things to achieve those. I mean, that's why there's black markets for organ trafficking too. There's just a lot going on, and this case has really put a light into such various different topics and like even other cases that it feels like a whole like pyramid. It feels like I don't even know what to call it, but there's just something very, very shady going on, everyone. Now, this is where I'm going to stop this video for today because I don't want to get into those other topics too much because they honestly really deserve their own video. And, Brianna's case deserves its own attention. But as you can see, there's a lot of connections, like I was saying. This case has woken up a lot of things. And also, too, just even implementing an Amber Alert system, that is another thing that they're looking to do now, especially because of this case and everything that is happening. I don't know how to end this video or what else to say because my stomach feels like, I don't know, it feels like the contents in my stomach are gonna come out, like I'm gonna puke because I'm disgusted at what human beings can be capable of. I feel disgusted if what the uncles did really is true because this is a little girl and it's cruel, it's inhuman, it's demonic. It really is the way that I would say it. And I am disgusted that if there is an organ and child trafficking ring, doesn't feel like the authorities are really doing everything that they need to do. And I feel like it shows the corruption of our government even more than ever. I guess I'm just disgusted at humanity or a lot of humanity or some humans. I don't even know, but I feel ashamed. I feel disgusted. And honestly, I just want answers. And I think everyone does. And like I mentioned, I really wish that we could find Brianna, that we could put a stop to this. But I know it's harder than, it's easier said than it to be done. I don't know, guys. My next video, I am going to go over very in depth the cases that are happening in relation to the organ trafficking and for the child trafficking. There's a specific case from this little girl that went missing a few years ago, Carla Maciel, where hers might involve both as well. There's a lot of questions to be answered. I keep saying, guys, like, it's so hard to even talk about this because I'm just disgusted. But I really hope that the more I spread this, even if just one more person learns about this and hears about this, that's one more person that's gonna have the knowledge, and that some sort of pressure that can be put on the government, because no government, right, especially in a country such as the Dominican Republic that relies on tourism, no government wants their country to look super bad, right? Like, we don't want our country's image to be tarnished to the point that people stop coming over for tourism, because then we're losing a lot of our economy on that. So I'm hoping the more people that learn about it, the more eventually, that will put pressure on the government and the right officials to actually do something. Now, until next time, please take care of yourselves. If you have kids, always keep an eye on them, truly, and stay safe. Stay safe. Bye.